Hello folks, I wanted to show you the somewhat portable solar system that I built. We recently moved and the power grid down here doesn't seem to be as stable as what I was used to, so I was looking for an alternative way to provide power during a blackout and didn't want to rely solely on a generator because if I could get enough gas, and I'll go over all the math for that in a future video. So to start out, I looked at some of the vendors out there, SolarStick, Goal Zero, there's a couple others. The problem was I just couldn't afford them. I liked what they had, but I couldn't afford it. But then as I was looking at the components, I decided, hey, I can probably build this thing. Not the world's greatest mechanic or fabricator, but I felt that I could get it done. So it took me about 6 months, but this is what I've actually managed to put together. So I have two Kyocera 140 watt solar panels that are hooked up in parallel, which gives me 280 watts. Sorry about the dog. You see him, there he goes, there's Dempsey. That are on a speaker / light stand from Ultimate Stands. And I'll take you around the back now and kind of show you how I have it hooked up. Okay, this is looking at the back of the solar panels. You can see the top of the stand and you see a crossbar and some braces. The braces I picked up on eBay as well as the stand. The bar I picked up on eBay, but it's not a regular speaker stand. It's a little bit thicker walled tubing that was also available on eBay. And then you see all the little clamps are on eBay. The little box that the panels go into, I had to actually pick that up off an electrician's website. It's a weatherproof enclosure. I'll put a link to that in the description below. You can see I also kind of fabricated my own power cord here just because I thought it was cool. If I ever make another one of these, I'll probably just use a regular 30 amp generator extension cable. Would probably be easier. But again, if you want to make one, you can. I'll provide the link to the websites where I got the 30 amp cable and also the connectors on either end, the plugs and the sockets. So I'm going to take you down and show you what this all connects into and show you how I've got it all hooked up and how I'm generating power and that kind of stuff. First I'm going to give you an overview and then I'll move in closer so you can see the components of the boxes. The box that is to the left, it's a Pelican case that I picked up used. This one has my solar controller in it, the fuses, the switches. It also has two 104 amp hour batteries in it that combine to give me 208 amp hours. And then the box over on the right is another Pelican case that I picked up used on eBay. And that has a Samlex 1500 watt inverter in it to give me AC power, and it can peak up to 2000 watts. So now I'm going to move my tripod, get a little bit in closer and point down and explain the different components that I used and why. Okay, here we're looking at the box that houses my breakers, my fuses, a small DC output panel, switches, and some terminal units, and also venting for the battery. I have venting all over the sides of the box because the batteries, when you charge them, do give off gases that are flammable and explosive, so you want to make sure they're able to vent out of your battery box. So when you look at it first things first, over on the far right hand side you can barely see there's a black cable there. That's coming from the solar panels, goes in the side with another one of those funky dewy connectors that I made. It comes into my breaker panel down here where I have 3 breakers. First it comes from the panel through the second breaker, but the first breaker is the batteries because you have to charge the controller. The controller needs some power in order to regulate what's coming off the panels. So you never want to take your batteries down to 0 just because of that. But first breaker goes on, will energize the controller. That then will allow you to charge the battery as well and control what's coming from your panels. So the second switch is turning on the panels, and the third switch is going to the DC power panel up here. And I have some of your regular lighter plugs here. I have a USB one here that can actually power an iPad, so it's the 2.1 amps. It also has a little display showing the voltage in the amp that's being used, and it actually has a little 15-20 amp fuse that's in here, and each one of these is actually on a rocker switch, so you can turn these on and off independently when you're providing power to them. The one key here is when you look over to this side, there is a larger power cables that are coming out that go to my inverter. The reason is the inverter draws 200 amps, so you have to have the thicker electrical cable for it, and there is also a 200 amp quick blow fuse that's sitting in underneath this panel as well. This acrylic was also bought on eBay in small lots. You can get it fairly cheaply. And then over on this side I have 2 battery terminals, and the reason why is when you're talking about car battery voltage and these little distribution panels up here, most of these guys are only rated for like the 15 amps. You can't take an inverter that's more than 180 watts and plug it in here. You risk overdrawing and blowing the fuse. So that's why there's a couple extra terminals over on this side. They have a 100 amp quick blow fuse underneath the panel inside of here, so if I don't need the full 1500 watts, if I just want to provide power to some of the kids' computers and a couple lights, I can run a smaller inverter off of these 2 terminals. Plus it gives you a spot to hook up your battery buddy. And this is a little battery buddy. It's a trickle charger, and what it does, or a float charger is what they call it. I grew up thinking of it as a trickle charger. It keeps your batteries powered or charged up when they're not being energized by the solar panel. So like if I have this sitting in my garage and it's just kind of hanging out, batteries, the power that's stored in them slowly degrades, so you want to make sure that it doesn't degrade down too far. That's what the little float chargers are for. They'll make sure your batteries are topped off so that if you do have a power outage, it starts in the middle of the night. Obviously the sun's not up for solar yet. You will have power in your battery bank. So that's something critical. You got to make sure you have a way to hook it up. These 2 terminals are controlled off of this switch here. The larger one over to the right is controlled off of this switch here. I can turn everything off, turn this switch on, and the only thing that's live is these 2 terminals to the battery, and that allows me to isolate them during charging. Now I'm going to swing my tripod over and show you my little inverter box. Okay, this is my my inverter box. I have the inverter mounted inside of here. Again, I have a lot of vents across the top. I have vents on the side that line up with the fans on the inverter, and then I have a draw on the right hand side as well. I have a remote panel that's here that lets me see how many volts are coming in from the solar and the batteries. And see what's going out, how much I'm drawing in terms of amps and voltage, and check on it. It also gives me the ability to turn it remote on and off from outside the box. I do have 2 outlets, ground fault on the top of the box, as well as 2 outlets on the side of the box with a weather lid thingy on it. So that protects it. So this is kind of my my backup power in case of a power outage. I'll use the generator to drive the fridge and the microwave for the wife, but this will be to provide power for TVs, lights, computers, internet if it still happens to be up. And I was able to do it at about half the cost of what Goal Zero and Solar Stick would have charged me. So it was one of those where, you know, invest some time, do some shopping around, find some components. You can get yourself a pretty good deal and a nice little setup. I'll have a slide stack on that that I'll post because I did kind of fall prey to Tim the Toolman Taylor-itis. 104 amp hour batteries, heavy. So I'll do a comparison of Goal Zero, Solar Stick, and then my own personal setup to kind of give you an idea of what it costs, what it works, and how portable everything is. So again, thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Please send me your comments if you have any questions or suggestions. And as always, I hope you have a good day.